There is a story Frederick Douglass tells in his autobiography that most people who know his name have never read. Douglass, born into slavery, escaped to the North in 1838. He became one of the greatest orators and writers in American history. He advised presidents. He lectured across 2 continents. He is remembered as one of the towering figures of the Abolitionist movement and of American democracy. But before any of that, before the speeches, before the books, before the meetings with Lincoln, there was a single moment that Douglass himself identified as the turning point in his journey from slavery to genuine freedom. It was not the moment he escaped. It was not the moment he first spoke publicly about his experiences. It was not any political moment at all. It was the moment he received his first wages. Douglass had escaped to New Bedford, Massachusetts, and found work as a laborer. He writes about the experience of receiving his first pay with an intensity that surprises readers who expect him to be focused on political rights, on voting, on the legal structures of freedom. He was not. He was focused on the money, on the physical reality of holding wages he had earned and that no one could take from him, on the experience of being an economic agent, a person whose labor belonged to himself, whose compensation was his own, whose future was not determined by the decisions of an owner, but by his own choices about how to spend and save what he had earned. This, Douglass understood, was the foundation of everything else. Not freedom in the abstract, not rights on paper, but the concrete, practical, daily reality of economic sovereignty, the ability to control the product of your own labor and to use it to build a life on your own terms. Without that, he understood, political freedom was an illusion, a performance, a form without substance. I want to build on that insight in this video and make an argument that I think is one of the most important and most neglected in modern political thought. Economic empowerment is not a precondition for political freedom. It is not a component of political freedom. It is not correlated with political freedom. Economic empowerment is political freedom. They are not 2 separate things. They are one thing, viewed from different angles. And Bitcoin, understood not as a speculative asset but as monetary infrastructure, is one of the most powerful tools for genuine political freedom ever built. Not because it makes people rich, but because it gives people what Douglass understood in New Bedford, the ability to be genuine economic agents, whose stored labor belongs to them, whose transactions require no one's permission, and whose financial lives cannot be controlled by those whose interests diverge from their own. Let me build this argument carefully, because it is more radical than it sounds and more defensible than it might appear. Start with the distinction that the philosopher Hannah Arendt made in her 1958 work, The Human Condition. Arendt drew a careful distinction between 3 realms of human life: the private realm, the domain of the household, of biological necessity, of the basic requirements of survival; the social realm, the domain of economic activity, of production and consumption, of the management of collective material life; and the public realm, the domain of genuine political action, of appearance before one's equals, of speech and deliberation about shared life. For Arendt, genuine political freedom, what she called action, was only possible in the public realm. And the public realm was only accessible to those who had been liberated from the necessities of the private and social realms. You could not be a genuine political actor if you were consumed by the struggle for survival. You could not participate in the shared life of the city if your entire existence was organized around meeting basic material needs. This is why, in the ancient world, political participation was restricted to those who had sufficient economic independence to step back from necessity. Arendt did not defend this restriction. She recognized it as unjust, but she took seriously the insight embedded in it. That genuine political agency requires a kind of economic foundation that makes participation in the public realm possible. What does this mean for the modern world? It means that political rights, the right to vote, to speak, to organize, to participate in democratic life, are necessary but not sufficient for genuine political freedom. A person who has formal political rights, but no economic security, no ability to save, no protection from the arbitrary erosion of their stored labor, no capacity to build capital that lasts. That person's political rights are real in form but limited in practice. They are consumed by necessity. Their political participation is constrained by the material conditions of their life in ways that formal rights cannot address. This is not an abstract observation. It is the lived experience of hundreds of millions of people who have every formal political right that a democracy can offer, and who are nonetheless effectively excluded from genuine political agency by the economic conditions in which they live. Now let's bring in a second thinker. The economist and philosopher Amartya Sen spent his career developing what he called the capabilities approach to freedom and development. Sen's central argument, laid out most fully in his 1999 book, Development as Freedom, is that freedom is not primarily a matter of formal rights or the absence of interference. Freedom is a matter of real capabilities, the actual ability to do and be things that matter. A person who formally has the right to start a business but cannot access capital is not free in any meaningful sense. A person who formally has the right to education but cannot afford it is not free in any meaningful sense. A person who formally has the right to political participation but cannot afford to take time away from economic survival is not free in any meaningful sense. Sen's insight is that the absence of formal restrictions is not the same as the presence of real freedom. Real freedom requires real capabilities, and real capabilities require real economic foundations. Apply this to monetary policy and the result is striking. Inflation systematically destroys capabilities. When the purchasing power of saved wages erodes, the capability to start a business is reduced. When housing costs inflate beyond the reach of ordinary wages, the capability to build stable housing, the foundation of stable family life and community participation, is reduced. When education costs inflate to levels that require decades of debt, the capability to invest in human capital is reduced. When healthcare costs consume an ever larger share of income, the capability to maintain physical health, the most basic precondition of any other capability, is reduced. Inflation is not a neutral economic phenomenon. It is a capabilities destroyer. It systematically erodes the real economic foundations of genuine political freedom for the people least able to protect themselves from it, while preserving and enhancing those foundations for the people most able to hedge against it through asset ownership. This is the monetary dimension of the capabilities approach that Sen never fully developed. The monetary system is not background infrastructure that can be taken for granted while we focus on education, healthcare, and political rights. The monetary system is the foundational layer on which all of those other capabilities rest. And a monetary system that continuously erodes the purchasing power of stored labor continuously erodes the capability foundations of genuine freedom. Now let's make this concrete. Consider a woman in Buenos Aires in 2023. She works full-time. She is educated. She is politically engaged. She votes. She participates in civic life. She has every formal political right that Argentine democracy offers. She also watched the Argentine peso lose more than 90% of its value over the preceding decade. Every peso she saved evaporated. Every plan she made based on stored labor was undermined by a monetary system she had no control over and no meaningful ability to exit. Her economic sovereignty, her ability to be a genuine Arendtian economic agent, her capabilities in Sen's framework, was systematically destroyed, not by any personal failing, but by the monetary system in which she was embedded. Her political rights were intact. Her political freedom was not. Now consider what changes if she holds Bitcoin. Her savings cannot be inflated away. Her stored labor is protected by a protocol that no Argentine government, no central bank, no IMF structural adjustment program can override. Her ability to transact, to send money, to receive money, to participate in the global economy, does not depend on the permission of institutions whose interests diverge from hers. Her economic sovereignty is real, not formal. Her capabilities, in Sen's framework, are protected at the monetary level. This is not primarily a financial improvement. It is a political one. Because economic sovereignty is the foundation of political freedom, protecting economic sovereignty is protecting political freedom, in the most concrete, practical, daily sense. Now scale this up beyond one woman in one country. There are approximately 1.4 billion people in the world who are unbanked, who have no access to formal financial services, no savings accounts, no credit, no ability to participate in the formal economy. These are among the most politically marginalized people on Earth, and their political marginalization is not separable from their economic marginalization. You cannot build political power without economic foundation. You cannot participate in the public realm when you are entirely consumed by the private realm of material survival. For these 1.4 billion people, Bitcoin is not an investment vehicle. It is the first access to monetary infrastructure that does not require a bank account, a government ID, a credit history, or the approval of any institution. A smartphone and an internet connection are sufficient. The monetary system is permissionless in a way that no formal financial institution has ever been. This is financial inclusion in the deepest sense. Not the shallow financial inclusion of giving poor people bank accounts that charge fees they cannot afford and freeze assets at the first sign of irregularity. But genuine monetary access, the ability to save, to transact, to build capital, without permission, without a gatekeeper, without the constant possibility of exclusion. And genuine monetary access is genuine political access, because you cannot build political power without economic foundation. You cannot sustain political organizing without the ability to fund it. You cannot maintain political independence without the ability to be economically independent. Douglass understood this in New Bedford in 1838. The abolitionist movement understood it when it argued that the economic independence of freed slaves was not a secondary concern to be addressed after political rights were secured, but an integral component of genuine freedom that could not be separated from political rights without making those rights hollow. The civil rights movement understood when it organized economic boycotts alongside political demonstrations, recognizing that economic power and political power were not two separate struggles, but one. Every serious movement for political liberation in history has understood at some level that economic empowerment and political empowerment are not two different things. They are one thing. The political movements that have failed to secure this understanding, that have won formal political rights while leaving economic foundations unaddressed, have produced formal freedom without genuine liberation. Bitcoin does not solve every dimension of this problem. It does not build schools or hospitals or democratic institutions. It does not end exploitation or dismantle unjust power structures. But it does one thing that no previous technology has done. It gives every person on Earth access to a monetary system that cannot inflate their savings, cannot freeze their accounts, cannot deny them access based on their politics, their nationality, their religion, or their relationship with the institutions that control the existing financial system. It gives every person on Earth the monetary equivalent of what Douglass held in his hands in New Bedford, wages that belong to them, that no one can take, that represent the real foundation of economic sovereignty and therefore the real foundation of political freedom. This is not a small thing. This is not a financial product. This is infrastructure for liberation in the most serious sense that word has ever been used. The left has spent a century arguing that formal political rights are insufficient without the economic foundations that make them real. It has been right, but it has failed to follow that argument to its monetary roots, to ask what kind of monetary system is consistent with genuine economic empowerment and what kind systematically destroys it. Bitcoin is the answer to that question. Not a perfect answer, not a complete answer, but the most serious answer that has ever been offered, the first monetary system in history built on the principle that economic sovereignty belongs to the individual, not to the institutions that manage the currency in which they are forced to live. Economic empowerment is political empowerment. Bitcoin is the proof. Subscribe, and we will keep following this argument wherever it leads. Because the most important political questions of our time are monetary ones, and the monetary conversation has barely begun.